are not, they're different. And it says very clearly criticism of Israel cannot be considered to be anti-Semitic. But it recognizes that anti-Semitism has changed over the years. It doesn't only come from the far right anymore. And as we've seen since the 7th of October, we do get these surges in anti-Jewish hatred and harassment of Jewish people that are connected to broader kind of anger and sentiments over Israel. Now, this is controversial for some people who don't like to acknowledge that reality, or who feel that it restricts too much their ability to criticize and critique Israel and Israel's policies and actions. I don't think it does limit that, but that's where the controversy comes in. So there are two other more recent alternative definitions that have been drafted. One is the Jerusalem Declaration on Anti-Semitism. The other is called the Nexus definition or declaration. But the IHRA working definition is the most widely used. And broadly speaking, for agencies that are tasked with tackling anti-Semitism, with identifying examples of anti-Semitism, either within their own organization or in wider society, you need some kind of definition to assess things against. You need something to kind of guide your investigation. Every example will be different. And one of the things people struggle with is that the same kind of language can be anti-Semitic in one context, but not in another, depending on who's saying it, why they're saying it, what their intention is, what the impact is, who's listening to it, and all the broader contextual issues. And you need to assess every different example or incident on its individual merits. And the IHRA working definition can be a useful kind of non-binding practical guide to doing that.
The reason I asked Dave, because of the recent surge of anti-Semitism online, especially in the post horrific attacks on southern Israel by Hamas on October 7th. But let me ask, what is the current state of anti-Semitism online?
Look, the internet is absolutely central to the way that anti-Semitism works today, in the same way that it is absolutely central to the way anything in the world works. I mean, it's integral to how we're recording this podcast right now, to everything we do in our lives. And there's no reason why anti-Semitism should be any different. But it's not just a neutral platform. I think we're going to probably get into this, but social media companies in particular, the way the algorithms operate, the way certain narratives are amplified and spread, do actually play an important, influential role in the prominence and the availability of anti-Semitic ideas. And this operates in two ways. Firstly, it allows extremists, anti-Semites, to connect with each other around the world, to encourage each other to share content, to share ideas. It creates a virtual community where previously these people may have been isolated. And secondly, it allows people who want to target Jews with anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish harassment to do so directly, to identify and target individual Jews or Jewish organizations online, whereas previously they would not have been able to get to them directly. So those are the two kind of main roles that the online world plays in facilitating anti-Semitism, the way it operates.
Now, there are thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of anonymous accounts on different platforms who spread anti-Semitism. Now, I know it's very difficult when we talk about anonymous accounts. Myself, I worked anonymously for years, and I was in need of being anonymous for my protection. But it's difficult when you think about it and ask for legislations to reduce the possibility of anonymous accounts. I mean, is there any way governments can work through legislations to reduce and also ask for verification of accounts?
So this is part of a much broader policy discussion, I think, about government regulation of online platforms in general. At the moment, the internet is pretty much an unregulated space. You do have some laws in some countries. You know, Germany has brought in laws. Britain has brought in the Online Safety Act, but is not yet implementing it. But broadly speaking, it remains an unregulated space. And for an industry that is so influential and a technology that is so powerful, I think that people are starting to recognize that there are too many harms associated with that lack of regulation for it to be sustained much longer. And we do need something. Now, obviously, the moment you talk about government regulating the online space, you're talking about government regulating speech, which is different from regulating car safety or, other kind of industries. But still, I think there have to be ways that do it, but that still respect democratic rights and democratic freedoms. And anonymity is a really important issue here. Now, if we look at how platforms operate already, some platforms allow anonymity and others don't. I mean, according to the terms and conditions of Facebook, you're supposed to use your own name. Now, of course, lots of people probably don't. How good Facebook or Meta are at enforcing that is, another question. And quite often with platforms, what we see is that the rules of behavior look pretty good on paper, but aren't actually enforced properly. When it comes to anti-Semitism and anonymity, one thing I would say is that a lot of anti-Semitism comes from people who are acting in their own name. And that's one of the surprising things in a way, and perhaps shocking, but it is a reality, is that people are very happy to spread anti-Semitic ideas in their own name. Some of them don't realize what they're saying is anti-Semitic, but a lot do. Especially on Twitter, you get a lot of anti-Semitic actors, a lot of extremist actors who use their own name. They've got verification and they use it as a very powerful platform for spreading anti-Semitic ideas. So removing anonymity wouldn't deal with the problem, as a whole. It would still leave a big problem. I think, but people do use anonymity to hide behind, especially if they're using social media as a tool to target and harass and threaten individuals, whether that's Jewish individuals with anti-Semitism or other kind of examples. And I think the fact that platforms not just allow this, but actually enable a form of harassing behavior, threatening behavior that just simply couldn't happen without their technology, I don't think that's acceptable. I think it's just fundamentally wrong that platforms have created a technology that enables this kind of harmful behavior and don't have any responsibility for it. Now, to set against that is the fact that, as you said from your personal experience, there are many settings in which anonymity is really very valuable and quite essential. Your experience is in the value of anonymity in an undemocratic or repressive society, but even within democracies, there are lots of people, if we look at, for example, domestic abuse victims of sexual violence who want to talk about their experiences, anonymity is important in those settings. And I think one way to deal with this conundrum, but on the one hand, there are times when anonymity is valuable, on the other hand, there are times where it's harmful, is that platforms should be free, as they are now, to allow anonymity or to ban it. And currently, as we say, different platforms take a different approach. But if a platform allows anonymity, and if someone takes advantage of that anonymity to commit criminal or harmful behaviors, then the platform should bear some of the legal responsibility for that. And then they can make that choice. They can allow this very powerful tool of anonymity, but with that comes responsibility, and with responsibility should come liability. And I think that's one way to kind of balance these different competing needs.
In that case, it's the platforms itself, the Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and many other platforms. I mean, should they be held accountable?
Yeah, it's the platforms, but they have to be held accountable by regulation. Because, look, we've been talking to social media platforms for nearly 20 years now to try to get them to tackle hate and extremism on their platforms. And we've come a long way from the times when they had literally zero moderation and just weren't interested.